All right, so move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my overall thoughts on how to fix the Dallas Cowboys this NFL offseason. Now, starting off with how I felt about Brian Schottenheimer in his first year being the head coach with the Dallas Cowboys. My letter grade. Overall letter grade, I'll give Brian Schottenheimer a hard B minus. Now, I think Brian Schottenheimer did a good job as the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. I know fans were expecting more, but guys, we were doomed from the start before the season even started. We traded Michael Parsons 7 days prior to the season starting, so we honestly were not going to be Super Bowl contenders. I mean, yeah, with this offense, but not with that terrible defense. But nonetheless, I think Brian Schottenheimer did do a good job as the head coach with the Dallas Cowboys this year. Like, guys, this was his first rodeo. He never was a head coach around the league, and he had a lot of experience being a veteran around the league as an offensive play caller, was a part of a lot of different coaching staffs over the years, but never as a head coach until Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones presented the opportunity to him last NFL offseason when they did a surprise in-house hire. But I think Brian Schottenheimer proved a lot during the season that he could be a good head coach in this league. The Cowboys offense averaged 27 points per game. He was the play caller all 18 weeks of the season. But at times, I could get the frustration out of the fan base. He was outcoached several times in the league. But guess what, guys? It happens to the best of the best. Andy Reid has been outcoached several times in his illustrious NFL career. Same with Sean McVay. Same with Kyle Shanahan. Like, it happens to the best of the best, guys. And we're talking about someone that has never been an NFL head coach before. Like, there's some decisions that could have been better. There's some opportunities in games that could have been better. And I think he got outcoached against several teams this year. You could look at the Chicago Bears film. He was outcoached by Dennis Allen's defense on the road week 3. He was outcoached by the Arizona Cardinals. Too many mistakes in that embarrassing Monday Night Football loss. He was outcoached on the road against the Denver Broncos. And late in the season, he was outcoached by Brian Flores' defense and the Minnesota Vikings overall. He was outcoached in that game. So I think there's a lot to hang your hat on about Brian Schottenheimer. There's a lot of excitement for me heading into year 2 for Brian Schottenheimer. Like, this offense was a high-powered offense. They were nearly top 5 in every offensive category. Dak Prescott had over 4,000 passing yards. We had 2 1,000-yard receivers in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. We had a 1,000-yard rusher in Javonte Williams running the football. And there was some good wins that Brian Schottenheimer showed me that he could be a good head coach. That huge victory against the New York Giants early on in the season, week 2. He showed me he can win close games. You look at that game against the Kansas City Chiefs where we won on Thanksgiving. You look at that game against the Philadelphia Eagles where we overcame a 21-0 deficit, scoring 24 unanswered points and having the biggest comeback victory in franchise history. Like, there's a lot to hang your hat on for Brian Schottenheimer heading into his sophomore year with the Dallas Cowboys. The offense is really good. He holds his players accountable. He doesn't give a damn who you are. He will hold you accountable if you're not setting the tone or setting the standards of what it's like to wear and represent the star. Just ask CeeDee Lamb. Just ask George Pickens, where they face consequences during the season. He's not a damn puppet like previous head coaches, like Mike McCarthy was, like Jason Garrett, the long-lost adopted son of the Jones. He's not one of those guys. And I think Brian Schottenheimer, with a perfect defensive-minded guy by his side, with this high-powered offense, and they build the defense and get the good defensive coordinator that they need to, like, I think the Dallas Cowboys can be in the conversation for being a Super Bowl contender next year if they build this team correctly during the offseason. And that brings me to the next point. We have to execute on defensive coordinator, guys. Like, yes, we fired Matt Eberflus. Yes, that's the step in the right direction. Now it's time to get a good defensive-minded guy in Dallas as your next defensive coordinator. And I give a lot of credit to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones giving the power to Brian Schottenheimer, our head coach, to find our next defensive coordinator. Like, the ball's in your court, Brian. Like, I can't remember the last time a Dallas Cowboys head coach had this much leeway. I don't think Mike McCarthy got this much leeway. That's why the Jones family and Mike McCarthy ended up splitting up. I don't think Jason Garrett ever got this much leeway. He didn't. So Brian Schottenheimer has all the power to find the next defensive coordinator. The ball's in your court, hero. So the wish list of my defensive coordinators, I would love Jim Leonard, defensive pass coordinator for the Denver Broncos. I like Jim Schwartz, the job that he's done in the NFL as a defensive-minded guy, the job that he's done with the Cleveland Browns defense and his work during his NFL career. Jonathan Gannon would be a nice pickup. Was just fired by the Arizona Cardinals, but I remember the work that he did with the Philadelphia Eagles as defensive coordinator years ago. Brian Flores, I would love him, but I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to pull the trigger and give Brian Flores an opportunity in Dallas, unfortunately. So that gives me to who I want. Jim Leonard. I want Jim Leonard as their next defensive coordinator. I'm sold on him. He's currently the assistant head coach for the Denver Broncos and their passing coordinator in Denver. Like, this guy has experience in the NFL. He has experience at the collegiate level. Coaching, he's very young, 43 years of age. Like, this is a guy that you want to get your hands on early. And specialist in the defensive passing game for the Denver Broncos. I mean, coaching matters in the NFL. Patrick Surtain is the best cornerback in the NFL. They have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. And the secondary was our weakest part of our defense this NFL season. Like, we couldn't stop a nosebleed. Our corners could not stop a nosebleed this NFL season. I mean, his experience being a DC in Wisconsin, like, he runs in college football, he ran a 3-4 scheme. I think that's what he would bring to Dallas, a 3-4 scheme. Be creative with different blitz packages, have some high safety looks. High safety looks. You could bring in Caleb Downs, 12th overall pick from Ohio State, one of the best defensive players on the board this NFL draft, that had Caleb Downs play in Jim Leonard's defensive scheme. So let's get this done. Like, both of these things would be key ingredients for the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. And Jim Leonard's defense, he's known for having a disciplined defense, forcing turnovers. And he has history with Brian Schottenheimer. Like, these guys go way back, Jim Leonard, Brian Schottenheimer, all the way back to their days with the New York Jets in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They spent time in the New York Jets. Brian Schottenheimer was their offensive coordinator, and Jim Leonard was their safety. So let's get this done in Dallas, and let's bring in Jim Leonard as our next defensive coordinator. I don't want to see Zach Orr as our next defensive coordinator. Like, let's make the correct hire. It has to be one of those guys. Jim Schwartz, Jim Leonard, Jonathan Gannon. It's got to be one of those guys. And I think if we could do that, we'd be a good spot if you're the Dallas Cowboys. Next, we got to restructure some contracts here. Now, we have several contracts that we should restructure in our approach to be a competitive team in free agency. And we need to do this if we're going to re-sign or sign attractive free agents. Because Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Smith, like, they're all good offensive players and some of the best at their positions. But all three of their contracts are over $400 million. Like, we got to do something about that ASAP. So I think we got to restructure these deals to bring in top tier free agents. And we got to keep some significant talent. Like, we got to, I think our approach, I would love to bring back Jadeveon Clowney edge rusher back. I would love to tag George Pickens. And if you tag George Pickens, just tell him, like, you're our guy. But just as a financial standpoint to win now, like, you have to be tagged, and we can deal with this next spring or before the season begins. Because even if George Pickens gets tagged, he's still getting the bag for another season. We're talking about like 25 to 30 million plus. And I think we should re-sign Javonte Williams. He was one hell of a back this year. I would love to see him back with Dallas. And our kicker, Brandon Aubrey, let's re-sign him. But you also got to build a free agency. Like, I don't care if you get a good defensive coordinator or not. If you don't build in free agency with some type of defensive play, with some type of defensive talent, like, this offseason was a waste. So you got to address the holes on this defense. I think the interior defensive line with Odigizua, Kenny Clark, Quinion Williams, we're good there. Clowney, you can bring him back as an edge rusher. We're good there on the defensive line. Your holes is at linebacker. That's a huge hole. I think Kenneth Murray is one of the worst linebackers in the league. You definitely need a cornerback this offseason. You did a good job dropping the dead weight of Trayvon Diggs before week 18. So let's get a linebacker. Let's get a corner to play alongside DaRon Bland next year. Definitely need that. And also, Overshown can use a tag team partner at the linebacker position. But you're looking at these free agents, guys. Like, there's some good defensive talent, like Tyreek Woolen, cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's try to bring him in, make a play for him. Jalen Watson, cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, let's make a play for him. Devin Lloyd, linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's make a play for him. Kobe Bryant, DB for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's make a play for him. Nakobe Dean at linebacker for the Eagles. I think we could give him a lot of opportunities playing alongside Overshown. So let's make these things happen. So I think we have a lot to do. And last but not least, we got to hit on our draft picks. We have to hit on our draft picks significantly because we're talking about this is the first time the Dallas Cowboys have had two first round picks since 2008. Our draft needs, we need another defensive end, a pass rusher. Look, Micah's gone. You're not going to find one of those players like that probably for a long time. But try to find a defensive end. That's one of our needs. Let's get a safety. I just talked highly about Caleb Downs. I would love to have Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State. We could use another corner, a linebacker, possibly another offensive tackle. Let's make it happen. But that's my approach of how the Dallas Cowboys should rebuild this defense and structure this team this NFL offseason.